Welcome to another episode of What Grinds My Gears. Today, mechanic scams. I've had several instances over the years of people telling me about mechanics and them getting scammed. I happen to be on a website right now just kind of checking some out. They're talking about prematurely replacing plugs that you don't need to. Not too long ago, I replaced a set of ball joints, lower ball joints, in a 99 S10. The people that had wanted all four ball joints changed. When I got there, it looked like as if half of them had been changed. Supposedly, they were all supposed to have been changed about 2 months ago. Well, they got very lucky, and the ball joints separated in their driveway when they came home. So I replaced both lower ball joints, so they had a full set of brand new ones. The place they had taken to is fairly new, within the last 3-4 years, if I remember correctly. They moved into town here from the smaller town 10 miles away. And not the first time I've heard stories about half-ass work being done from these places. There was an instance of, I believe, a timing belt went, and the place was supposed to have the head gone over and checked, and I believe it was the valves, and they didn't do a test or check anything. They just slapped it back together, retimed it, and the guy had trouble with it. He never did tell me if he pursued him or not. I think he should have pursued that a little harder and at least got his money back for what it was. I don't remember exactly if he ever did get back to me on the rest of that story. I'd have to check. But that's just one area. There has been several other places. I've had a friend of mine who was supposed to get alignments that they never did. They were supposed to check the brakes for part of an inspection that were never checked. They were on metal. I ended up replacing them. Supposedly the last oil change was like 5 days ago, and they were supposed to do one of them fancy all-point checks. Well, obviously that got skipped. So, I'm just going to go through a few things here on the internet if you guys can follow along on the camera. This is the spark plug one. Now, with spark plugs anymore, they're usually almost, they like to call them a lifetime plug, which is generally 100,000 miles. So, depending on the vehicle you have, Fords, some of them are not so good where they either lock in or blow out. But if you change your plugs in the proper time, for the most part, generally in most engines, you won't have any problems. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, this one obviously was a scam. Somebody said they replaced them, and they either didn't, or they told them to replace them too soon and wasted their money. So that is something you have to watch out for. That's why you always either request the old parts, or you at the very least have to go and look at your engine and see what they did. And also be very well aware of your maintenance schedule. Let's see what number 9 is. Engine treatments. Let's see, I'll read this a little bit. Mechanic scan comes often at the oil change joints. Also some repair shops on their stores. Oh, okay. Snake oil. What they're doing is they're saying we're going to add a little bit of this to your oil to go ahead and prevent X, Y, or Z. Or maybe they're saying, well, what we need to do is flush your oil and clean out the system. My personal opinion, all of them are just wallet flushes. They do make such things as oil treatments and water treatments and all sorts of things. I personally have used a couple of the engine oil flush products, which to me seemed nothing more than diesel oil or kerosene added to the oil while you ran it for X amount of minutes and then drained your oil again. My story is I had a 94 Firebird formula that I did not understand that the LT1s ran with very low oil pressure, thought I bought a dud, went to go use this stuff, did not make a change because everything was apparently fine. Now, the one thing I do kind of sort of believe in is tranny fluid. You can put a quart of tranny fluid in if your oil with every change, and I believe that helps keep things pretty clean. And I've experimented with it over the years. I've never found any defects. It's never hurt any engine. It's an old-time remedy they claim will keep everything like new on the inside. Now, I've never pulled any engine apart that I've used this particular mix in. I've been told by many old mechanics that they pull off valve covers and whatever else, everything's nice and clean. But at the same time, if you use good oil and change it at the proper interval, I believe it'll do the same thing. So that extra quart of tranny fluid, or excuse me, a quart of tranny fluid versus a quart of motor oil mixed in couldn't hurt. It has many more detergents and is meant for keeping everything very clean. If you've ever seen the inside of an automatic transmission, you would understand how that is. Well, let's move on to number 8 before I run out of time. Number 8, unnecessary upgrade to synthetic oil. Oop, we got an ad. Get rid of that. Okay. I won't bother reading this one as I have my own opinions on it, wrong or right. In certain engines, if it did not originally come with synthetic oil, and you add synthetic oil, what will happen, most likely, is you're going to start to see leaks from various points of the engine, maybe just little seeps, as the synthetic oil can get into smaller spaces and, well, areas where, say, you had regular oil, it leaked a little bit, and it got dirty and it plugged itself up, or it swelled the gasket. Where synthetic oil is, it'll keep it cleaner and wash away the dirt, and now you'll see a leak. So, well, it's kind of your call on your engine. Older engines were more prone to it, but it's 2015 now, and within the last 15 years, I'd say most vehicles are pretty safe to have synthetic in. I've put synthetic in a 98 Astrovan with a 4.3. I never noticed any issues because I was running a lot of miles. I have done the same with a 2003 Pontiac Grand Prix. Did not see any issues. It did have leaks in certain spots before I put that in, and I was well aware of that, so I did not find any new leaks. I have now just done it to a 95 Chevy half-ton where I previously had not. The only reason I'm doing it is because I'm going to be running a lot more miles with it. We will see if that does anything at all. The engine's pretty tight other than the power steering leaking at a certain point. So we'll see. I haven't even done the first oil change on it since putting it in. I've only got 1,000 miles on that oil. We will see yet. So that is a personal opinion, and depending on your make and model, look into it. It's probably the best way to determine for yourself. Moving on to number 7. Replacing air and cabin filters prematurely. Now, this one is a little bit of a personal preference and conviction. I believe in replacing all my filters regularly, and that means when they're dirty. That does not necessarily mean within 5,000 miles, within 4,000 miles, within 25 miles, whatever. I look at the filter, I pull it out, I hold it up in the air. If I can see light coming through it, it is still technically usable. Depending on how dirty it looks, I will replace it. My air filters get replaced twice a year, generally once before winter and once in the spring, summer area, depending on how they look and what conditions they've been running in. Cabin filters, I personally have not had a vehicle with them. I've had some friends with them. Keep an eye on those, because those tend to plug up just as bad as any air filter, and if you have mice anywhere, they will plug them up. I had a friend of mine, they couldn't figure out why the heat wouldn't work. We looked at the cabin filter, pulled it out, there's a giant mouse nest. No wonder that didn't work, so that got replaced. He also had another car with that, and that one had never been changed in, well, quite a while by the looks of it, so that one was completely plugged. Pulled that out, replaced that. Works great. So, your mileage may vary on that one, but go with your gut. See what number 6 is, transmission treatment. Let me read that a little bit. Okay, what they're saying here is nobody thinks about taking care of their transmission unless it starts malfunctioning. And this is very true in an automatic. I myself have been guilty of it. Well, I mean, I take a look at it, but I'm not as careful about it. I try to do it with every fill up on my gas, check my oils. But at one time I wasn't so particular. So anyhow, what they're saying here is that most people will run them until they're dry, they'll get burned up, and they won't work. So all of a sudden, oh gosh, what are we going to do? Well, they'll take it somewhere, somebody will flush it, and then they'll try it and it won't work because it's already burned up. It's too late at that point. But what is more commonly happening in my knowledge is people will take their vehicle in, say we have 100,000 mile, we want a 100,000 mile service. They don't take it to the dealer or somebody specializing in that maker model. What they do is they'll take it somewhere and there's supposed to be XYZ done. Let's say they're supposed to change the oil, check the brakes, ball joints, service the tranny, which may mean draining the fluid, flushing out the old fluid, and putting in new fluid in a filter. Now, what a lot of places will do, they'll just hook up a tranny flush machine, flush out all the old fluid, run it till they get all the old fluid out, put in new fluid, call it good. That's not actually service the tranny, that's just a wall flush. You need to actually drain everything, change the filter, and flush it. Now, there's two schools of thought on trannies. One, keep running the old stuff. Run until it quits. Supposedly, there's debris in the tranny which keeps everything working great. Once you flush that out after it's been so old, it's not going to hold together. Well, my thought is on that is if you flush out the old stuff and it craps out, it wasn't that far from crapping out in the first place. So basically what that means, in my opinion, is you're supposed to do what the second school of thought is: change that tranny fluid on a regular basis by the intended service interval in your manual that your manufacturer suggests. Is it every 100,000 or 75,000, whatever it is? I suggest you do it. It is well worth the expense if you want to keep that vehicle a long time. If you don't, well, I guess that's on you. Let's move along on to the next one, see what we get. Number 5, premature cooling system flush. We spoke of this earlier. Now, I don't know if there's anything as a premature cooling system flush. I would say at least every couple of years, generally before winter. Make sure you flush out the old, put in new. Make sure that stuff's up to snuff if you're in a cold climate. For example, I've seen 3.1 and 3.8 engines that have need their coolant flushed regularly. Otherwise, they gum up, and they also have issues with heads and intakes, which may be dumping oil in the coolant or other things like that. So, it is well worth keeping an eye on your coolant system. Pop open that cap every once in a while when it's cold. Make sure you ain't got any debris in there, any gunk. Make sure it's at the right height. Check your overflow tank and recovery tanks. Make sure all of that's in good shape. Like I say, every couple of years I believe is recommended to flush it, and or at least drain it and refill it. So it never hurts to keep an eye on that, especially with deck school and the other new coolants. Some of them actually have a congealing factor to them. If they have been left long enough and not done anything with, they will congeal and form a shell in the radiator and plug everything up, and by then it's already too late. You've already killed your cooling system, and that leads to some very expensive repairs. I kind of prefer to do it, like I say, every 2 years, kind of the max for me. Personally, if I can do it, I would really love to be able to do it every fall. Just make sure it's up to stuff, nothing else. Just check it, and if it's a little weak, strengthen it up. On to the next one. Number 4, unneeded air conditioning recharge. Yep, this is a common scam. I have seen this more times than I care to admit. What this is this guy says, oh, well, your car just needs a recharge, it'll be cool and fine. Well, air conditioning systems are a sealed system. Other than a component failing, there is no reason to recharge an air conditioning system. On my 03 Grand Prix that I recently had, I bought it. Air conditioning, he said it wasn't working, he was going to have it fixed. Said it was just air in the system, which I knew to be false due to the fact that I do work around air conditioning units in my job, and I let him do whatever he was going to do knowing it wouldn't work. So within 2 months I didn't have air conditioning anymore, it was just blowing warm air. Well, his air in the system had come back because it was leaking somewhere which I couldn't find, and I had done my due diligence to find. It just is the way it is. It needed actual repair, not just somebody throwing some AC at it and say, here you go, congratulations. That's not the way it works. So be cautious around that. Read up on it if you would like some more info, or if you want, I could do another video. Let's see what the next one is. Premature shock strut replacement. Okay, well, this one is kind of hard to talk about in my opinion. They too tend to push this just a little bit, maybe more than they need to. This is either done at the proper interval according to your manual, and it may even be premature for your vehicle in the manual if it is written in there, because perhaps they lasted longer than what the interval is. The best way to check this is to push on your car at each corner and see how many times it takes for that bounce to come back. They call it the bounce test. If I remember, the correct amount of bounces is about 2 to 3. If it does more than that, your car is wore out, or if it's really, really easy to push up and down, I mean, like if there's next to no resistance, well, then you definitely need shocks or struts. Broken spring, you're going to notice kind of a similar effect. You can actually look underneath your car and find the broken spring. So this one, I guess I have not heard of as much. It's out there, just not as prevalent in my area maybe. Fuel injector service. Now, they do try to push this on people a lot of times when it's unneeded. If you're having running issues, that is the time to ask them to look into doing that, because they can actually hook directly into the fuel injection system underneath the engine versus going from your tank and pouring something in. Now, the treatments you can put in your tank are a good maintenance item to do a couple times a year. There's no reason to do this all the time, because eventually if you use too much additive, you will actually cause issues with your fuel system by putting, well, I'm not sure how to say this, but it'll contaminate the fuel in a way. There'll be certain reactions left in the tank by overdoing it, and it'll actually cause problems and clog up fuel injectors. But if you do it as recommended, like say that two, maybe even 3 times a year, it's not a big deal. It's just when you get too carried away that you'll have that issue. Now, if you're actually having a running issue, like I said, and they want to do a fuel injection service and they think that will solve it, it is definitely well worth having them do, because they can hook it up directly to the fuel system in the engine, like I said, and that will clear out a lot of issues. And sometimes, if your vehicle is dead and they bring it into the service bay, if it's dropped off by a wrecker and it's right by the door or something, and they need to get that in there without wheeling it as one man, I have seen people do that, where they'll hook up the fuel injection system setup, and they'll actually run your vehicle off that to get it in the shop. So it is a safe procedure. It'll do what it's supposed to. Just don't get carried away with it and think these guys are gonna, well, every time you change your oil, you should do this. No, that's not the case. If you're having running issues and it is definitely fuel related, or they're trying to track down an issue, and this is one step to eliminating what the problem actually is. So do not let them do that a bunch of times. Premature brake pads and rotors. This one definitely does happen, and in the reverse. As I had said earlier, a friend of mine just had an oil change done on their car. It was supposed to be checked over. Their brakes were actually metal to metal. It was missed. There are some shops out there that will sell people rotors and pads when everything is hunky-dory and fine. And they will either swap the parts, or they will charge you for the parts and not perform the service at all. So you won't even get what you were supposed to have been paying for in the first place. So you have to watch out for that. You have to, if your car is making noises and you feel funny in the pedal, likely you may need some service. And if they try to sell it to you, it may possibly be the actual issue. If your car has been braking fine, you hear no noises, no pulsation in the pedal, anything like that, you may or may not need it, depending on where. I would ask to see where the brakes are. I would ask to see the gauge. Show me the worn parts, so I can make a determination, and you can explain to me why they are where they are, and I need to replace them, if you are suspicious at all. And they shouldn't have any problem with showing you the parts, either bringing them to you or possibly going out to the shop. A lot of shops nowadays don't want anybody out there as a liability, but if you have a shop you trust and they have never failed to be right there on every issue, obviously if they are recommending it and you trust them and it's been a long-standing relationship, you probably can say, okay, go ahead, replace those components. And that is just the top 10 list I randomly found on the internet. I just kind of wanted to throw that at you with some of the hack work that you see out there. Claiming to replace parts when they don't, replacing parts when they don't need to, and charging you for that, and you've wasted your money. They will tell you you need X service when you do not. All that sort of stuff, it happens. I've seen it happen. I'm not even sure. I might have even been a victim to some of it over time and not even realize it at the time. One time I'd asked somebody to rebuild the carburetor for me, and I still didn't feel that the the job was truly completed, but there were more issues than just the carburetor there to get that car back into good health. So I don't know if I was scammed or not in that situation. I may have been, but that is something else out there to be aware of. You go and ask them, say, hey, I need brake work done. They look at it and see that the brakes are fine. They don't tell you that. They say, oh yeah, your brakes are terrible, we replaced them. Yeah, bad situations, bad situations. So anyway, I just wanted to educate a few people about some things like that and let you guys know that it really ticks off us good mechanics because it gives us a bad name in general, and people mistrust us because there are distrustworthy people out there pulling these kind of scams. Honestly, I like the fact that I get the work when they screw up and I have to fix it right and I get a good customer out of it. But I'd rather them have gotten what they were supposed to the first time around and not have to come to me because everybody else is on the same level. And everybody is on the same level. We're all trusted, and people don't have to worry about where they're going to get service. Competition is competition. When you screw up, somebody else is better, takes over. But if you just do the job right the first time, you'll stay in business, you'll have a good paycheck, everything will be just fine. When you half-ass, hack jobs, slap shit together, you're going to lose business, your paycheck's going to go down, you're going to have bad days. So I'd rather just see the entire hack mechanic stuff just go away completely. But it is what it is. The world is a kind of a sad place. So I'm going to leave it with that, and thank you for watching.